The hangar deck trembled as the warship settled into low orbit above a dying world, its metal ribs groaning under the strain of constant deployment. Rows of armored soldiers gathered beneath harsh white lights, their towering forms casting long shadows across the polished floor. Some were encased in chitinous exoskeletons, others wrapped in shifting energy fields, each one engineered by evolution or designed for war. Their voices overlapped in a low chorus of confidence, arrogance, and anticipation. At the far edge of the assembly stood the human. He looked unimpressive by comparison. No towering height, no glowing armor, no visible augmentations. His gear was practical, worn, and unremarkable at a glance. A matte helmet rested under his arm, and faint scars traced along his exposed jawline. He stood still, not rigid but balanced, as if conserving energy rather than displaying readiness. A nearby alien soldier, broad-shouldered and plated in natural armor, let out a sharp clicking sound that passed for laughter. "This is the reinforcement," it said, its voice layered with disbelief. "They send flesh this fragile into a kill zone." Another joined in, its tendrils curling in amusement. "Perhaps it is a symbolic gesture, a reminder of what we are fighting to protect: weakness." The human didn't respond. His eyes moved instead, quietly studying the hangar, the exits, the positioning of troops, the rhythm of movement. He adjusted the strap on his weapon with deliberate care, ensuring every piece sat exactly where it should. A sharp tone cut through the noise as the commanding officer approached. Taller than the rest, cloaked in dark, reflective plating, the officer's presence silenced the gathering almost instantly. Its gaze swept across the soldiers before pausing briefly on the human. "This unit deploys in 3 minutes," the commander announced. "The enemy has overrun the southern districts. You are to push forward, reclaim ground, and eliminate resistance." Its eyes narrowed slightly. "You will operate as a mixed species strike team." A murmur rippled through the group. Mixed units were inefficient, unpredictable, dangerous. The commander continued, "Adaptability will determine survival." The human finally moved, placing his helmet over his head. The seal locked with a soft hiss, obscuring his expression entirely. A faint reflection of the hangar lights shimmered across the visor, hiding whatever thoughts lay beneath. One of the soldiers stepped closer to him, lowering its voice. "Stay behind us," it said, not unkindly, but with unmistakable condescension. "If you can't keep up, you will not last long." The human tilted his head slightly, acknowledging the statement without agreeing to it. Across his armor, faint etchings could be seen, thin lines carved into the surface, overlapping in tight clusters. They were not decorative. They were deliberate, counted. The dropship doors began to open, revealing the violent glow of the planet below. Smoke curled upward through the atmosphere, lit by distant explosions that painted the clouds in flashes of orange and red. The air itself seemed restless, as though the world resisted being saved. One by one, the soldiers boarded, their earlier confidence returning as they prepared for combat. Weapons were checked, systems activated, final words exchanged. The human entered last. He took a seat without hesitation, securing himself as the interior lights dimmed to combat readiness. Around him, the others continued their quiet exchanges, their earlier amusement not entirely gone. No one asked about the markings on his armor. No one questioned why his hands were steady. As the dropship lifted and hurtled toward the chaos below, the laughter lingered just long enough to echo in the confined space. Then it faded, and the humans said nothing. The dropship cut through the atmosphere like a burning blade, its hull shuddering as it descended toward the shattered city below. Through the narrow viewports, the battlefield revealed itself in fragments, collapsed towers, burning streets, and swarms of hostile movement threading through the ruins. The pilot's voice crackled over the comms, sharp and urgent, warning of heavy resistance and unstable landing conditions. No one laughed now. The impact came hard, metal slamming against fractured ground as the ramp dropped before the dust had even settled. The squad surged forward in practice formation, weapons raised, senses sharpened. Heat radiated from the broken streets, carrying the metallic scent of destruction and something far worse, something alive. The enemy did not wait. They emerged from the wreckage in sudden, violent motion, lean, fast, and unervingly coordinated. Their forms shifted as they advanced, limbs adjusting mid-stride, bodies reacting faster than logic could follow. The first volley from the squad struck them cleanly, yet several kept moving, closing the distance with terrifying speed. One of the alien soldiers faltered, its energy shield flickering under strain. "They're faster than reported," it shouted, stepping back as a creature lunged toward it. The human moved before the warning finished. A single precise shot dropped the attacker midair, its momentum carrying it lifelessly across the ground. The human didn't pause to observe the result. He repositioned instantly, scanning angles, tracking movement, firing again only when the outcome was certain. Around him, the formation began to fracture. Another wave hit from the flank, forcing two soldiers into defensive retreat. Their advanced weaponry struggled to adapt to the enemy's erratic patterns, each missed shot creating openings that the creatures exploited without hesitation. Panic crept into their movements, subtle but growing. "Hold formation," someone barked, though the command lacked conviction. The human shifted direction, stepping into the gap before it widened further. "Left side, compress," he said, his voice steady over the comms. "Don't chase them. Let them come." There was hesitation, brief but dangerous. Then one of them followed his instruction. The adjustment was small, but it mattered. The squad tightened, reducing exposure, forcing the enemy into narrower approach paths. The human capitalized immediately, firing in controlled bursts, each shot calculated to disrupt momentum rather than simply eliminate. A creature broke through regardless, slamming into one of the soldiers and sending it crashing to the ground. The human closed the distance without hesitation, switching to close-quarters combat with efficient brutality. The engagement lasted seconds. When he stepped back, the threat was gone. "Regain your position," he ordered, not looking at the one he had just saved. This time, no one questioned him. The battle stretched on, relentless and unforgiving. Every second demanded focus. Every mistake carried consequences. The enemy pressed harder, adapting, testing, probing for weakness. Yet the human remained constant, moving, adjusting, guiding. How was he predicting them? One soldier muttered, barely audible over the chaos. No one answered. Another surge approached, larger than the last, forcing the squad toward partial cover within the ruins of a collapsed structure. Breathing grew heavier, movements tighter, but the line held. For now, the human glanced toward the advancing mass, his posture unchanged despite the escalating threat. "They're not rushing," he said quietly. "They're hurting us." The realization settled heavily across the comms. "What do we do?" someone asked, the earlier arrogance completely gone. The human checked his weapon with the same deliberate precision as before. "We stop reacting," he replied, "and start controlling the fight." Outside, the enemy closed in, their numbers swelling against the broken skyline. Inside, for the first time, the squad waited for the human to move first. The ruined structure offered only partial shelter, its fractured walls barely holding back the chaos outside. Dust drifted through the air in slow spirals, illuminated by intermittent flashes of distant explosions. For a brief moment, the enemy's advance slowed, as if recalibrating, studying the resistance it had encountered. Inside, the squad gathered in uneven formation, their earlier cohesion worn thin by constant pressure. Several bore visible damage, cracked armor, flickering shields, labored movements that betrayed exhaustion. No one spoke at first. Each soldier focused on recovery, however brief it might be. The human stood apart, not distant but unentangled, his attention fixed on the openings in the structure. His rifle remained steady in his hands, angled toward the most likely entry point. He neither rushed nor rested. He simply remained ready. One of the soldiers finally broke the silence. "Human," it said, its voice stripped of earlier mockery. How many engagements have you survived? The question lingered, heavier than the dust-filled air. The human did not answer immediately. His gaze shifted slightly, scanning the perimeter before returning to stillness. Enough, he said at last, his tone neutral, offering nothing more. Another soldier, smaller but equipped with advanced scanning optics, stepped closer. Your armor, it said, narrowing its focus. Those markings, what do they signify? The human's posture changed almost imperceptibly. Not defensive, not aggressive, but aware. They don't matter, he replied. The scanner activated anyway. A thin beam passed across the etched lines on his armor, translating patterns into readable data. For a moment, the device processed in silence. Then it emitted a sharp, involuntary signal. That's not possible, the soldier whispered. The others turned, drawn by the shift in tone. Speak, another demanded, urgency replacing pride. The scanning soldier hesitated, then projected the data into the shared channel. Numbers appeared, layered, verified, undeniable. Confirmed eliminations, far beyond standard military records. The count climbed past hundreds, then thousands. Silence settled with absolute weight. One of the larger soldiers took a step back, its earlier confidence completely gone. No single operative survives that many engagements, it said, almost to itself. The human remained still, offering no correction. Multiple campaigns, another realized aloud. Different environments, different enemy types. You have been doing this for a long time. The human lowered his weapon slightly, though his vigilance did not fade. Long enough, he said. Understanding shifted through the group, slow but irreversible. He was not an anomaly placed among them for balance or representation. He was something else entirely, a product of sustained conflict, shaped not by a single war, but by many. Why were we not informed? One asked, though no answer came. Outside, movement resumed. The enemy began advancing again, but differently this time. Slower, more deliberate. Larger shapes emerged behind the front lines, their presence altering the rhythm of the battlefield. They've identified us as a threat, the scanning soldier said, its voice tight. They always do, the human replied. The squad looked to him now without hesitation. What is your directive? One asked. The question carried no trace of doubt. The human stepped forward, positioning himself where the structure's broken wall opened to the battlefield. He observed the approaching force, measuring distance, speed, intent. When he spoke, his voice was calm, precise. We don't hold here, he said. We break their advance before it surrounds us. That force will overwhelm us, another warned. Not if it can't organize, the human answered. He turned slightly, ensuring they all heard him clearly. Stay with me. Follow exactly. No hesitation. No one argued. Outside, the enemy closed in, their numbers thickening, their movements tightening with purpose. Inside, the squad adjusted formation around the human without needing further instruction. And for the first time since the battle began, they were no longer reacting. They were preparing to strike. The human moved first, stepping through the fractured opening before the enemy could complete its encirclement. The squad followed without hesitation, their earlier uncertainty replaced by a sharp, unified focus. Outside, the battlefield churned with motion as the advancing force tightened its formation, preparing to crush what it had identified as a contained threat. Angle right, keep spacing, the human ordered, his voice cutting cleanly through the calms. Don't let them compress us. They adjusted instantly. The enemy surged, but this time the squad did not retreat. Instead, they shifted laterally, forcing the approaching mass to redirect. The movement disrupted the creature's coordination just enough to create openings, small, fleeting, but real. The human exploited them without pause. He advanced in controlled bursts, firing with deliberate precision, each shot disrupting key points rather than random targets. Where the enemy attempted to regroup, he fractured them again, preventing momentum from building. The squad mirrored his rhythm, their attacks no longer scattered but aligned. Their breaking formation, one of the soldiers observed, surprise threading through its voice. Keep pressure, the human replied. Don't give them time to adapt. A larger creature pushed forward from the rear, its presence imposing, its movements slower but purposeful. The smaller units adjusted around it, forming a protective pattern. That one is directing them, the scanning soldier warned. The human had already seen it. Then we remove it, he said. The path toward the larger entity was anything but clear. Waves of hostile bodies filled the space between, each one moving with renewed aggression. The human did not slow. Instead, he altered direction, drawing a portion of the swarm toward him while signaling the others to pivot. Split on my mark, he instructed. Now! The squad divided cleanly, creating a momentary gap in the enemy's advance. Confusion rippled through the opposing force as their target shifted from single unit to multiple vectors. It was brief, but it was enough. The human drove straight through the opening. Close-range combat erupted with sudden intensity. Movements became tighter, faster, stripped of everything unnecessary. He struck with efficiency that bordered on mechanical, yet there was nothing artificial in it. Only experience refined to its sharpest edge. Each motion had purpose. Each action carried intent. Behind him, the squad held the line, preventing the swarm from collapsing inward again. They no longer questioned his strategy. They executed it. The larger creature turned toward him, sensing the threat. Its form expanded slightly, limbs adjusting, preparing to engage. It moved with calculated force, each step deliberate, each motion designed to overwhelm. The human did not stop. He closed the remaining distance under constant pressure, weaving through incoming attacks with minimal movement, conserving energy, maintaining focus. When the creature struck, he anticipated it, shifting just enough to avoid the full impact while countering with precise, targeted force. The exchange was brutal and brief. When it ended, the larger entity faltered, its structure destabilizing before collapsing into stillness. For a fraction of a second, the battlefield seemed to hesitate. Then the change spread. The remaining enemies lost cohesion, their movements fragmenting without centralized direction. The relentless pressure that had defined their advance began to unravel, replaced by disorganized aggression that the squad could now predict and counter. Push forward, the human said, his tone unchanged. They did. Step by step, they reclaimed ground, forcing the enemy back through the ruined streets. Resistance weakened, then broke entirely, leaving only scattered remnants retreating into the distance. Silence followed, heavy and unfamiliar. The squad stood among the aftermath, their breathing steadying, their weapons lowering. One of them looked toward the human, hesitation replaced by something else entirely. We misjudged you, it said. The human rechecked his weapon, as if the battle had been routine. You lacked information, he replied. Another glanced at the markings along his armor, understanding now without needing to ask. Those were not warnings, it said quietly. They were records. The human did not confirm it. He simply turned toward the distant horizon, where the war still waited beyond sight. Reform, he said, and, without question, they followed.